Welcome back to Hardball. The president tweeted earlier today that, quote, a very big part of the anger we see today in our society is caused by the purposely false and inaccurate reporting of the mainstream media that I refer to as fake news. It has gotten so bad and hateful that it is beyond description. Mainstream media must clean up its act fast. And Fox News host Lou Dobbs tweeted, fake news, fake bombs. Who could possibly benefit by so much fakery? He has since deleted that tweet, as he should have. It's all part of a larger pattern of conservatives now today trying to shift the blame for today's political climate to the media. Let's watch.
Certainly, the media has a role to play in this process. When 90% of the coverage about this president is negative, despite the historic successes, when the ideas are perpetuated and continued of negativity, that is not helpful for the American discourse.
It's the media doing what the media does, which is any narrative that they can twist against Trump, they will do so.
But the president has also bashed the mainstream media. He's the president, though.
That's right, and the mainstream media has often earned it. Look, I don't think there's a direct relationship of any kind between Trump and that kind of thing. The people you're talking also are people who have been publicly very hostile to conservatism.
Let's bring in tonight's Hardball Roundtable. Tamara Keith is a White House correspondent for NPR. Jason Johnson is a politics editor at TheRoot.com. And now Cardenas is the former chair of the Florida Republican Party. So all of you, what do you make of the president blaming the media for these bombings?
Well, he's consistent. Certainly. And he's not going so far as to blame the media for the bombings. He's just blaming the media for the climate. But this is...
Well, the original cause of the bombings. He's pretty much laying it on us. But
well, and the president does this thing where he makes it so that at least partially he's the victim, too. And that seems to be part of what's happening.
Being a victim works for him.
Yeah. The president's a liar. He is always going to deflect blame. He is almost singularly responsible for this, I will say it. His constant blaming of the media.
Explain that. Because why did he cause the bombings? Because
the direct aggression that he speaks about in regards to the media and his political enemies is unlike anything we have seen in this country in about 50 or 60 years. As a matter of fact, you almost have to go back to the early part of the 20th century where people were that nasty, where they were that aggressive about their opponents. Barack Obama, Bill Clinton, George Bush, Ronald Reagan didn't talk about locking up their opponents, didn't call them evil, didn't call the press the enemy of the state.
Even Spiro Agnew.
Exactly.
Only said nattering nabobs of negativism.
Exactly.
He didn't go much further.
Yes.
Well, look, I go a step further. I take this very personally. I'm a refugee from a country that obliterated the free press, killed many of them. And as a result, they let a despot take over without public opinion being in effect. So I don't like where we're headed in this country. I like free media. I like people who agree with me or disagree with me. But I like the fact that I live in a freedom environment where people can make their choices. So I take this kind of line of situation very personally, Chris, and I see dangers that perhaps others in this country don't see.
I share what you just said, because when we talk about the evils of the Saudi Arabian royal family, and I say, well, all those guys have had these romantic notions of the Castro brothers, you know, and all that crap. They're great, the romantic heroes. I say, wait a minute, they killed the people that disagree with them. They killed them.
Yeah.
Well, let's go to the next issue. This is the question about this race down in Florida here. Tell us about this race between DeSantis and the mayor of Tallahassee.
It was fascinating. You know, Democrats haven't won a governor's race in Florida in 24 years. Gillum is a heck of a candidate. No one expected him to win. He was in third and fourth place in all the polls. He came through. He's charismatic. He's smart. He was student body president at Florida A&M when I was board trustees there, so I knew him. But you know, he represents a progressive wing, and DeSantis represents the opposite wing.
The hard right.
The hard right.
Let's take a look at this. In last night's gubernatorial race debate down there, Democratic candidate and current Tallahassee mayor Andrew Gillum took a shot at former Republican Congressman Ron DeSantis. Let's watch. This is what you watch debates for.
My grandmother used to say a hit dog will holler. And it hollered through this room. First of all, he's got neo-Nazis helping him out in the state. He has spoken at racist conferences. He's accepted a contribution and would not return it from someone who referred to the former president of the United States as a Muslim, N-I-G-G-E-R. Now, I'm not calling Mr. DeSantis a racist. I'm simply saying the racists believe he's a racist.
Jason, sometimes you plan your attack and it works.
I mean,
that was a planned moment.
Oh, it was brilliant. And the setup question, I think, was key. First off, it was an example of good local reporting because the moderator said, look, you went to this conference. They said this, this, and this. And we didn't see DeSantis melt down. He screamed, what the HE double hockey sticks? Why am I supposed to know what kind of racists I spoke to this week? So it was really a setup that made it very easy for Gillum to say what he said. And I think DeSantis has been a quintessential example of what happens when a candidate melts down. I think he thought this race was going to be a lot easier. He didn't show poise. He didn't show real control throughout that entire debate. And they just kept lobbing softballs. I mean, he made it easy for Gillum to meme him.
Well, I think it's dramatic in the country for an African-American to have a good shot at being governor. That hasn't happened much. I mean, Doug Wilder down here in Virginia nearby here in a three-way race, he managed to win with all kinds of issues that helped him. But this is just one-on-one here. It looks like a hell of a race.
Yeah, and it looks like it's going to be it's a very tight race. It's a very close race. And it's just been ugly throughout. It's just ever since Gillum won the primary.
Let's hope there's no Tom Bradley effect.
Yeah.
Because Tom Bradley was a great mayor, great police chief in L.A., and he lost to this guy that he only lost to because of ethnic, racial reasons. That was the only reason I can ever think of.
Well, you can't say the Republicans won't be helped by two things. One, we always do better when the turnout is low, and this turnout will be a lot higher than it was in 2014. It'll be about 7.5 million people voting, which is like 2.5 million people more than in 2014.
Who are you voting for?
The fact that you're saying that is a bad sign for DeSantis.
Wait. You know,
you don't have to answer. That's not fair.
No. My choice, but I'll say this. The fact that I'm speculating is only because I have a problem with Donald Trump. Okay. Otherwise, I'd vote straight Republican, but it's hard for me to vote for Gillum because he's too progressive, frankly.
Okay, good. You're an honest man. Let me ask you about the bombing thing yesterday, whether it was intentional or was it just to scare people. Right down the line here. How's it going to affect this election? There's so much going on. There's news every day. The voters out there got one vote. That's really what they got, is to vote yes or no to the way things are going in this country.
Well, and some of them have already voted or are voting right now as this is swirling around. And I think at this point, it is way too early to know exactly. We don't know who did this. And that makes calculating what it means really hard.
I don't think it changes the vote at all. I think this is going to happen. We'll see these kinds of things happen, whether there's a blue wave or a blue trickle. It's the kind of violence that's engendered by this president and the lackeys in the Republican Congress that let him get away with it.
Well, it's 2 days without thinking about the Caravan. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not kidding. It's just distracted from what Trump wanted us to think about. Trump wants us thinking about that Caravan all the day to the vote.
Well, what's shocking me, and frankly, I blame some Democrats for not stopping up, is a lack of compassion about talking about this Caravan. I mean, I have friends who've been there at the Caravan covering this for the press. I've talked to them personally about it. These are not your typical economic migrants. These are people who have had relatives killed, who come from towns that have been totally taken over by narco traffickers. These are refugees just like the Syrians in Lebanon are refugees. Yeah. And so if you want to talk about policy, fine, but do not have compassion for these people. To talk about Middle Easterners thing or MS-13, come on, man. These are 7,000 men, women, and children fleeing from death, being carried thousands of miles by foot.
You're the best spokesperson on this. You are the best.
Come on.
I'm so glad you're here.
Let's show some compassion.
I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're here. The roundtable's sticking with us, and up next, these two will tell me something I don't know.